Hello, I am back. Woo! I am back for round 2 of whatever the fuck this is. Podcast, episode. I don't have a title for this. I don't have a picture. I don't have much going on for this other than I'm just going to speak on topics that I feel like speaking about. So here we are. I'm going to speak about Victoria's new anti-vilification law that came in last week, actually, finalised last week. Hooey. So I've got some notes down here. So if I'm looking down here, that's why. And I changed the lighting today. I don't know how I feel about it, but we'll see. I've got my OJ freshly squeezed. So you know I mean business, and let's get into it. I feel like no one is really going into like the nitty-gritty of this law or like is talking about it. Maybe because everyone's just fucking done with Victoria. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me, especially after being in COVID in Victoria. That's another story. But yeah, so this new Anti-Vilification and Social Cohesion law passed the other day. It was supported by Labor and Greens. Of fucking course it was. Look, I don't care who you vote for. It's just, of course it was Labor and Greens. Of course. Liberals voted against it. So yeah, I don't know. I guess if Labor continues to be in power in Victoria, then it will go ahead. But if not, I would assume it would get the fucking axe. So let's hope it does that. I don't know. So also just an FYI, I am not an expert, obviously. I'm not an expert in law, any of this. I just read the bill. I heard about it. My dad sent it to me. I read it, the legislation, it was all a bit to me, but then I created a mind map so I could understand it better, which really helped. And yeah, put some things into ChatGPT here and there. So that's where I'm at. That's the research that I've done. I think it's probably a lot more than the average person. So there's that. So you're going to learn some things, hopefully. I'm going to talk about the bill, all the things, what it means, who it affects, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm going to critique the shit out of it and tell you what I think about it. The bill was introduced into the Victorian Parliament by the Minister for Police, Anthony Carbines, but also a key player in creating and getting this bill ahead was this woman called Kate Houghton, I don't know. She's the Secretary of the Department of Justice and Community Safety in Victoria. She worked alongside Equality Australia on this bill, so it's a charity for the LGBTQ plus people. And yeah, it's kind of a runoff from the previous legislative framework of the Racial and Religious Tolerance Act, 2001, which addressed vilification based on race and religion. Okay, so that's still intact, but this new one now expands beyond race and religion, and it also covers attributes to do with sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, which is like, I would say 99% of the population now, HIV/AIDS status, and sex characteristics, which is an intersex. Okay, so religion is not protected under the new law, but it's still protected for discrimination under the Equal Opportunity Act. So that's interesting. Okay, so what the fuck is vilification? If you don't know that word, it basically means to publicly incite hatred, serious contempt, or ridicule towards a person or group. And now it's going to be based on their protected attributes, so these things that I listed. Also, another interesting thing is, like, say the Equal Opportunity Act, the 2010 one, it also protects individuals perceived to have the attribute, even if they don't. So, for example, if you wrongly assume someone to be gay or intersex, then that is still protected if they're vilified for that perception. So it's not just if someone is gay, it's also if you wrongly assume that they're gay and vilify them for it. Basically, this means you can't say you're a, and I don't think I can say it on YouTube, so I'll spell it out. We can't say you're a retard word anymore. We can't say your endometriosis is made up, based on the last episode with Marty Sheargold. We can't say you're gay and mean it in a mean way, which, by the way, anyway, that's another story. So there's things that supposedly we are not allowed to say anymore unless we want to go into the law system as Victorians. Okay, I will get into who this is actually affecting, because it's not just Victorians, even though it's a Victorian bill. And by the way, this act or this bill doesn't come into effect, the civil side, until September this year. So we still have until September, which is great. And the criminal aspect of this, which I'll get into, is not coming into effect until next year, I think June or July, so 2026. Okay, so there's the two avenues, the civil and criminal pathways for this law. So the civil way is going through complaints filed with Victorian Equal Opportunity and Human Rights Commission. So someone would complain to them. They would then look into it and then aim to resolve it through working with both parties, the victim and the offender. So they kind of work to resolve it through finding some sort of common ground. If that doesn't work out, if they can't easily work out some sort of common ground, then that will be pushed to VCAT, Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. And then VCAT may order some sort of remedy. And now these remedies can be between $1,000 to $10,000 for harm, which could be any sort of harm. It could be emotional distress, could be anything that the victim is claiming that their words has caused them. It could be removal of the content if it's online. That's another thing, is this is going to be a law for online and in person, in public. So it's all basically in public. And yeah, you could also be asked to make a public apology. You could also be asked to do training. And then there could be any other orders that VCAT seems appropriate. So that's the civil kind of thing. So the punishment's kind of, it's not that extreme, but it could be. And this could be, I think more civil will be like the social media comments. So it won't be like I don't think it'll be like the extreme hate that you might see out in the world. I think this would be your more social media stuff. And it seems kind of easy to send in a complaint. And I guess if they would get a lot of complaints towards a particular person, they would probably look into it more. And I know this is happening. I mean, I was listening to a podcast just before with Jordan Peterson, and he was talking about how he's been through this, where people complain. They could send in false complaints too, like they just make shit up. But yeah, that's another story. So yeah, the civil one seems like it might be like the most common that it could go down. And then the criminal side of this, so this is filed with Victoria Police. So someone will complain, take it to Victoria Police. Now they will investigate it. And this is kind of more serious cases where the intent is kind of to incite violence, which is like a whole other thing. You know, there's hate, there's the feeling of hate or dislike or whatever, and then there's the actual act of it, you know. So I think, yeah, so this is a bit more serious. And this consequence or punishment is maximum 5 years in jail if convicted, and or $22,000 fine. Okay. It's pretty serious. So also the other thing is the location. So obviously it's a Victorian bill. There is a weird thing. I got confused with it. I was reading the legislation and I was like back and forth with someone on Instagram about it, because what I read was that it could affect other states. And then that person was like, oh no, it's just Victoria, blah, 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 blah. But actually, it could affect other states. And how that could happen is that, so if the person who said the thing, like an offensive thing or hateful thing, whatever you want to call it, harmful thing, if the person is in Victoria and they say it online or in public in person, if they are in Victoria when they say it, then they could be convicted regardless of wherever the victim is, if that person sends in a complaint to either Vic Police or the civil thing, VCAT. So it doesn't matter. Anyone who complains can be from any state, which is a bit wild. But yeah, the person who says the thing has to be in Victoria. Okay, so that's one avenue that someone could be found and convicted against. However, if the person says the thing, the offensive, harmful thing, and they are not in Victoria, they're in another state, but the victim who is affected by that said thing is in Victoria, then they may be able to file a complaint if it is specifically directed at them. So if, say, a Queenslander says all those Northside Melburnian queers are X, then that's quite specific to Victoria, to Melburnians. So anyone who is affected by that statement in Victoria could file a complaint. So that New South Wales or that Queenslander could be convicted. That's pretty interesting. But if it's more of a generalized statement, say that Queenslander said women are X and it was a negative statement, they wouldn't be able to be convicted because it's kind of more general. It's not specific to Victorians. Hope that makes sense. But yeah, that's just meaning it could affect more than Victoria. Now, there are exemptions, which I think is going to help a lot of people with this. There are exemptions, and I think without these exemptions, we'd be fucking screwed. But there has to be exemptions, okay? There has to be, because there are so many situations where we can come across as offensive and it's not intended to be hateful. But yeah, these exemptions are to protect kind of legitimate expression such as public discourse, journalism, art, which includes comedy, could be religious views. And now it has to be in kind of good faith and kind of done with the intention to not incite hatred or serious contempt or ridicule, which is kind of like, it's a bit of a gray area because, I mean, comedians make fun of everything generally. So someone could be offended by it and think that they're like being, you know, they have the intention. But the thing about comedy is that it's like that intention isn't there. It's to make people laugh. And yes, sometimes some certain people are the butt of the joke, but that's comedy. Some people don't really understand comedy. I think that's another thing. They think it's like real life, and it's not. When you're joking, it's not real. Anyway. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, so basically the exemptions are kind of artistic work, academic or research, some sort of public interest like discussion or political debate, journalism, religious expression, kind of like education or in work or health settings. And then there's like a legal side of it, like through legal obligation. Now, they must be made reasonably and in good faith, okay? So it's kind of ambiguous what that means, but it basically means they must be said from the purpose that they are coming from. So, a comedian making a lighthearted joke is not intending to make any harm and it's just kind of just to laugh about it. But say if a political commentator who perhaps has a history of racist rhetoric, they might struggle to prove that it's done in good faith, even though it's maybe suggested it's for a debate or whatever. Which, yeah, I feel like this is where it's going to get really grey, because I know like there are certain comedians that do all the dark jokes. And so if they have a history of these darker jokes, they might then be seen as, okay, now you've got this history, it's racist, it's sexist, it's whatever, all the things, bigoted. And then they might see that as like, oh, maybe this isn't in good faith. Maybe this is a way for them to be harmful, and they're using this art form as a way to be harmful. But I'm hoping that comedians would be able to fight that. And yeah, I have no doubt we would be able to fight it, but you never know. You never fucking know, because they are always trying to cancel comedians. Okay, so that's the law. That's the law, and it, as I said before, it's the civil aspect is coming into effect in September this year. So I'm going to be in America by then, so all good. But the criminal aspect is going to come into play next year around June, July. Now, this is all if Labor gets into power, by the way. So I don't reckon, if Liberal got into power, I reckon they would scrap it, because they were very much against it. Okay, so my genuine concerns and critiques. I guess the first thing with this is, the actual bill itself is called Anti-Vilification and Social Cohesion, which social cohesion, it's all about making people have the same ideas, beliefs, and values to bring harmony. It's for the good of society. But the thing is with that is we are so influenced by other places. We're so influenced by other countries, other societies, other communities. We're constantly traveling. We have media across everywhere where it's from other places that do not have these values, beliefs, and laws even. We are influenced heavily by America, for instance. That's a big one. And their laws on freedom of speech is very, very different. Very different. So I don't see how putting this law into place is going to make us think these things that they want us to think, or they're going to make us believe these certain things or share these values when we are so influenced by other places. Yeah, I just don't see how it's going to work. I see it more as they're trying to punish us for speaking up on certain things. And I will talk about the hatred and what I actually think about that. But first, I just want to dig into this part. Yeah, so for instance, I love watching Kill Tony. If anyone else watches that, it is absolutely insane. I watch it every week. Now it's actually moved to Netflix, okay? Whether that's going to be a long-term thing or not. But that's mainstream media at this point. That is, everyone in Melbourne, everyone across Australia is watching Netflix. So they're going to come across this show and it has completely different values to what this bill is trying to get us to, be on board with. So I just don't see how this is going to create any social cohesion. Yeah. I think it's more about punishing those who don't obey, basically. And I don't think punishment is ever, ever going to bring us together. I think it's going to separate us even further. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think punishment ever works in this sense. I think, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to think about, a lot of different situations. Obviously, every situation is going to be completely different. It'll be case by case. And I am very much against hate, very much against spreading hate, inciting hate. However, I do think hate is something that we need to look at within ourselves. You know, I can understand that when hate is so bad, it could be inciting violence. It could mean someone is killed for who they are, but that's the act of it. That's the act of hatred. It's not the actual hate itself or the actual dislike. It's the acting on it that is the bad part, I think. And that's, well, bad part. It's like it's just a no-no. It's just a no-no. And so I think it's like hate is an emotion and a feeling, and it doesn't mean anybody has to act on it. And I think that's what we should be working towards that's what I think we should be looking at. And I also think we genuinely need to look at ourselves and ask, why are we hateful? Or perhaps why we don't think it's hate what we're saying, or perhaps why do we want to ridicule or be intentionally or recklessly hurtful towards someone else? Why are we hating someone or some people? Like, get curious and don't be ashamed of it. Just get curious of like why that is. Do we see an aspect of ourselves in that person or that group of people that maybe we've made bad within ourselves and we're shaming it in them because we've shamed it in ourselves? Is it a mirror, basically? Is it a part of us that we could maybe accept within us more and welcome with more love? Right? The more we love ourselves, the more we're going to love others as well. Or perhaps, do we have some genuine criticism and critique of them, of these types of people, because they're interfering with perhaps our life or perhaps humanity as a whole? Do we have some genuine concerns? Because that's a big difference. I don't think hate just comes out of nowhere. I think we must get curious as to why that is. And perhaps our hate is perhaps a boundary, a misinterpreted boundary. Perhaps they're imposing their beliefs onto us. Perhaps they're being hurtful to us. Are we perhaps fighting back? Is that what's going on? Is there more to it than just being hurtful or hateful for no reason? I think there's always more to ask and learn about than just like, that person's being hurtful. It's like, get curious. Why? And then, get curious and ask yourself on the flip side of that, okay, if you're not hurting or being hateful towards someone, perhaps look at your own, maybe are you being hated towards? Are someone being hurtful towards you? Why? Get curious. Get curious. Are they just projecting onto us? Are they jealous? Or are we projecting something out there that someone else in the world is like, hey man, like fucking get your shit together, or hey, that's not cool. And they have genuine concern over something within us. Or perhaps it's like that mirror thing, maybe there's some trauma and it's just being mirrored out and that's the way it's going to come out. Yeah, I just think these genuine questions could actually help us come back together more. I don't think punishment is going to bring us together. I don't. And I think we should be able to have these discussions and debates without being fucking offended. Without being offended. Everyone is so offended. But this is like, we should be able to talk about it. But then again, like Australia, here in Australia, we don't have a fucking amendment protecting freedom of speech. We don't really have freedom of speech. So, you know, it's a bigger critique than just this bill. Yeah. Anyway. Generally, this law actually just feels like a huge overreach to me. I think it's going to get really fucking messy. I mean, it already is. But it feels like it's controlling speech way more than it ever has in the past and trying to like force something down our throats. Yeah. And it's not just speech, okay? Like it's when you control speech, you control people because speech is very, very important to our expression. Obviously, there's more to expression than just speech, but it's a big aspect. Maybe we should just all learn sign language. I don't know. That's a genuine thing. I would love to learn sign language. I think it's a great language. And look, of course it's not okay to be hateful towards people, as I said, okay? Especially if someone's life could be really fucking hard and then they get hated against. It could be really fucking hard. I get it. And I have no doubt that there are people in Australia, in the world, that feel like they could use the extra support to fighting against the amount of hate that they receive. I have no doubt that there's people that want extra support, and I do get that. And I would never want someone to feel like they need the extra support from the government or, you know, this system where it punishes kind of so harshly. I don't think it needs to go that far, as I said. Yeah, I guess the thing is like people hate. We hate things, and if we're aware enough, we could ask ourselves why, as I said, ask those questions, look at it within ourselves. But anyone can hate anything about you. Like people say hurtful things all the fucking time. All the fucking time. And yeah, it no matter who you are, no matter what attributes you have or like what community you're in, they can literally hate anything about you. Anything. You know, and I guess it becomes a choice as to whether you're affected by it. And obviously there's going to be something like I don't agree that the hate should be inciting that people act on the hate. That's where I'm like, no, that's draw a fucking line in the sand there. Do not. But if it's lighthearted fun or it's genuine conversation, genuine concern, like, and that is considered harmful or hurtful to someone, but it's like a genuine conversation that needs to be had, that's very different. But yeah, inciting like acting on these hateful things, that's very, very different. And yeah, I don't agree with that. So, but yeah, and I also think like on the other hand, there is a time in our life where we do need to fight back. If someone's being really hateful or hurtful or harmful to us, there is a point where it's like, no, I need to fucking fight back. And so I can see how this law could be a way to fight back. I can see that. But I'm assuming that this law is only really going to be for a select amount of people. Like if it's used correctly, I feel like it's only going to be used, it's only for a certain few people. But I don't personally think I think it's going to go beyond that. I think it's going to be abused. I think it's very easy to abuse. If it's very easy to complain about someone, or it's very easy to say how much someone has hurt you and how their words have affected you, it could be so easy to pin a case against someone. And so that's why I'm like, well, I can see how the law could be for a select amount of people that do need to fight back towards hate that they're receiving, that hate that perhaps people are starting to act on towards them. That's fucked. And yeah, the law would help them. But I feel like it just feels like a select few. And I think the amount of people that are going to abuse this is going to ruin it. It's like I was listening to this episode with Jordan Peterson on Theo Von's podcast, and he was raising concerns about trans people in Canada. I think they passed a law, and he spoke out against it. And the law was something like, if you say you are a different gender, then you are, and you can like just sign a signature on it or something. I don't know the full story, but that's that. And so he spoke out against that and was like, well. And so he spoke out against that and was like, look, that's all well and good, like that's all nice, but people are going to manipulate that. The rapists are going to manipulate that, which they did. Of course they did. So the men, the biological men that have had serious offenses against them, rape charges, all that, then were able to claim that they were women, and then they went into women's prisons and raped them. So that's a genuine concern that he brought to the table, and he was classed as being hateful. I think people are too tolerant and don't realize that these systems can be abused, and if they can be, they will. Like, there's no doubt about it. There's no fucking doubt about it. I did listen to Moira Deeming's speech on this as well. So if you haven't listened, I would definitely recommend it. And I don't care if you don't like the Liberals, because she's a Liberal Party woman in Victoria. But she's great. She made a great speech. And she did have a really good perspective on it, because she has come from, the last few years she's been absolutely vilified. And yeah, she received a lot of that over the last few years. But she is very against this bill. So even she, who has received a lot of vilification and defamation, she is against this bill. But yeah, she said this great thing. She used this great term, the cry bullies, which I love. I love that. We all know who that is and the type of people they are. But and yeah, she kind of is questioning what I'm also questioning, is like how this law could be abused, how it could be used to ruin someone that they just don't like. They could weaponize this to bring someone they don't like down. And it seems like it could be weaponized quite easily if they put in enough effort. It could also be used by the perpetual crybabies. Definitely could be used by the crybabies, crying victim all the time and not taking responsibility for their triggers and healing, which is another thing, is like, you can be hated for anything, but you can also, there's ways to respond to it. I get a lot of hateful comments. They say whatever the fuck they want to say to me. And, it's a lot of the time I just ignore it, because I'm just like, oh, it's not me, it's them. Like, it's very clear it's that. But then sometimes it gets to me and I'm like, well, why did it get to me? And I get curious and I use it as an opportunity to heal that thing, because it's always pressing on an insecurity within myself. And that's, yeah, I think people want to avoid that, and they just automatically go into victim mode and automatically see that person that said that bad thing as the prosecutor, as the very bad person. But it could be used as a mirror. It could be used as an opportunity to heal something. Now, I'm not saying There's an extent to that, obviously, as I said before. If this, like, you know, hate is kind of inciting to act on the hate, then that's where I draw the line, obviously. But I do wonder, like, in a scenario, if someone said something hateful and then let's call them crazy, some crazy person was so influenced by that hateful statement and acted on the hate towards the person or people that hateful comment was made against. Is that the responsibility of the person who said the hateful thing? Because we're not responsible for other people's actions. Obviously, there's a line, and there's like people that have a lot of influence. They might be more held accountable. I don't know. It's an interesting one. But yeah, it also makes me think as well, and there's another clause in this bill that I find is really interesting, and it basically answers my question. But I was wondering if this is going to focus only on certain people. Like, it says it's for sex, and it says it's for sexuality. You know, you can't be hateful towards these attributes, but is it only going to favor the minorities? If someone is attacked for being straight, are they going to be protected as well? Or is it only going to focus on the LGBT, people? Which I think it will. I think it will focus on the minorities, because there is a clause here, and they're calling it the Sam Kerr clause, which is funny. But it's not actually called that, but people are calling it that because it's kind of similar to what happened with her recently. So basically, the clause is that it mandates that historical and social disadvantage be considered when determining if something is vilifying. So that could mean it's going to be selective about who's going to be charged, basically. The white man is probably not going to be charged. The white straight man, that's for sure. Yeah. Big sigh on that one. But yeah, it's basically like, it means it's going to be context dependent. So if you say something like women in sports are overrated, I don't know, women in sports are X, say something nasty, to say someone who is a sports star, maybe Sam Kerr, it's going to be seen differently than just a comment about someone being overpaid because of the history of women's sports, discrimination, blah, blah, blah. So it might be that comment is considered more harmful than, say, talking about men in sports because of the historical discrimination thing. Basically, it's saying if you're targeting someone who is from a historically oppressed group, the impact of your words are going to be more damaging, and therefore they could go after you more. So I am concerned with this for obvious reasons, the double standards, which I speak on a lot. I don't like it. It's, yeah, I will get into it. Okay, so like, why protect certain attributes? That was where my question came from. Why protect only these certain attributes? And obviously the reason why is because they're going to call themselves marginalized, okay? And they're lacking some sort of privilege that maybe other attributes or other people have. We're told that certain groups need extra protection because they've been historically oppressed in history. And I do get that. I'm not ignorant to history, obviously. But It is 2025, and we live in Australia. If you live in Australia, or wherever you live, if you live in if you live in America or wherever, another Western place, it's 2025. Pretty much everyone has access to the same things. We do, men, women, whatever your skin color, whatever your sexuality, we have access to the same things. But as I said on the last one as well, we can't ever truly be equal in the same sense biologically, because we do have differences about our experiences, our past experiences, and just our biology in general. If we were to be completely equal, we would have the same experiences. We would have the same histories. We would have the same fucking genetics. We would have the same biology at its core. And that would mean we would all be somewhat equal. But we don't, okay? We live in a world where we have differences. Obviously, we have a lot of similarities as well. And I do like to focus on those similarities, that we're all fucking human. We are all human. But we do have differences. We have different lives, different things that have happened in our life, different parents, different blah, 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 different talents, different gifts, different traumas. And so we're going to have privileges and benefits and disadvantages if you were to look at comparing yourself to other people. And that's why they say do not compare yourself to other people, because you are fundamentally different, right? Especially here in Australia, when we're multicultural, everyone has had such a different upbringing. We can't exactly be like, oh, you've got this thing and I don't have that, so that means you shouldn't have that too. Or I should get special privileges. No. And my true belief in this is that whatever life has given you, whatever God, whoever you want to speak is this higher power, I choose the word God. Whatever God has given you, whatever challenge, whatever path, whatever history, whatever parents, whatever genetics, whatever it is, whatever talents, gifts, whatever, is a blessing. It's all a blessing. And the more we feel victimized by the things that we have been given, that have happened in our life, or the way that we are, the more we feel victimized by these things, the more we will create our own suffering. Okay, it's not out there. It is in here. It is in here. The more we feel victimized by the things that we have been given by God, by this higher power, by life, by nature, by whatever you want to call it, the more we're going to create our own suffering. I've read so many books. I've listened to so many podcasts, not to brag, but I've read the stories where someone has come from absolutely nothing and they've worked up to being a fucking billionaire. Okay, this happens. I've read the stories, heard the stories where someone has been so oppressed in their country, that North Korean woman, let's say for instance, but there's many other instances where that's happened. They've been so oppressed in a specific society or country, they've run away and they've found freedom elsewhere. In this North Korean woman, she found freedom in the US. Now, obviously that was a very difficult circumstance, but it shows you what is possible, that you do not have to be victimized by your given life situation. If you want something out there, if you want a certain life, go for it. Go for it. I don't believe that our own lack in our lives should be a reason that someone else doesn't get that thing. It's that whole, it's like that thing where people get angry at rich people because they don't have a lot of money. They blame the rich people. It's like, dude, just if you want to be rich, go for it. Don't make it a bad thing. Go for it. Or look at those beliefs that are telling you that you can't be rich. Anyway. The thing is, life changes, okay? So you don't have to be stuck in the place that you are. That's a choice. That is a choice. Even, my gosh, there's so many stories of people having particular things like gone from their lives, whether it's their hearing, their sight, and they eventually feel blessed by it. They see it as a gift. They see it as a gift. So whatever attribute that you think that makes you feel less privileged and oppressed, and whatever the government or these people are telling you are making you oppressed or less privileged because you have that attribute, do not fucking listen. It is a gift. It is a gift if you choose for it to be a gift. Whew. All right. I think that's where I end it. Thanks for listening. I'm headed to America, to Austin, Texas this year. I'm very excited. If you've been listening along to my Instagram, you'll know that that's happening. I'm very excited. I'm going on the 23rd of April. I'm going to be fucking out of here, out of this state. But yeah, there is still time for people to say things if you're in Victoria, or out of Victoria, as I said. It's not just affecting Victorians. But yeah, there's still some time to say some things, okay? Still some time to say some things. So I do encourage everyone, now is your chance to say those things before you get attacked. And obviously, I don't mean really fucking, disastrous things. You know what I mean? I mean lighthearted stuff. Don't pin me as the bad guy. Or maybe do it. I don't know. But yeah, get it out of your system. You've got till September, or just move out of Victoria. But you still might be targeted. I don't know. We can also, I forgot to say, we can still make fun of vegans. That's good to know. We can still make fun of people's body size, so fat people or really skinny people. I don't know, unless it's a health condition or disability of some sort. So, yeah. You can still make fun of someone's financial and housing situation. We can still call people povo if you want. So that's all well and good, Always look on the bright side. All right, well, that is it. I hope you've enjoyed the episode and you liked hearing me speak. I certainly like to speak. But yeah, do all the things, like, comment, subscribe, as they say. And have a good fucking day, retards. Bye.